Okay, so I legitimately don't know how I feel about this movie, to be completely honest. Um, it's a thinker, I'll give it that, and one that is really interested in ideas. Um, and it raises some interesting questions and some interesting points. But I think the problem I'm having with it is I don't know, when all is said and done, what its opinion of those ideas are. One of the things I've been, maybe I just have this on my brain. We just got done tonight with the student-directed one acts at White Station, and one of the things I was always telling the student directors is that when you do a concept paper, the two things you need to ask yourself is, one, what do I think this is about? I believe this is about love. I believe this is about death. I believe it's about this. I believe it's about that. And number two, what is your opinion on that? If you believe something to be about love, do you believe it's an indictment of, okay, let's use this example, so maybe we just got Emma Thompson or Emma Watson on the brain. Do you believe Beauty and the Beast that story of true love is a story of seeing the beauty in a person, beyond the physical? Or is it a story about Stockholm Syndrome? How do you view it? Because that's going to depict how you direct everything else. That's going to depict all the choices you make. So in looking at this film, they have some big ideas. But when all is said and done, when the movie is over, I leave going, I don't know what message I'm supposed to be taking away from it. I have some ideas, and maybe that's the whole point, is that you have ideas, and you don't necessarily need all the answers spelled out for you. But I don't know, it just leaves you with this very kind of, okay, is this better? Is this worse? Is this, what is this? Anyway, so the other problem I have with this film is that I don't know, and maybe this isn't such a bad thing, but it is kind of unnerving, considering kind of what I'm trying to do here, and I don't know what you would classify this movie as. I've seen some of the commercials on TV saying it's a great thriller. I don't see anything particularly thrilling about this film. That's really, if it's a thriller, it's the dullest thriller I've ever seen in my life. So for those who don't know, or just to, be on the same page here. So the film is about Emma Watson, who gets a job working for The Circle, which The Circle is basically if Apple and Facebook and Twitter and and YouTube and all these big internet companies all had combined and were one big company. As opposed to a bunch of different little sites, it was one big site that basically did everything. And how the founders of this, played by Tom Hanks and Patton Oswalt, or at least the guys who run the company, how they are constantly coming up with these new innovations that at first Emma Watson's character and us as the audience, we see him and we go, that's a little unnerving, and then gradually she kind of gets pulled into the world of it, becomes very, I guess you'd say, seduced by the dark side a bit. Like the very first time we see Tom Hanks is introducing the crowd, like these tiny little cameras that you can put up anywhere, and nobody knows they're there, no one's watching, and therefore you can kind of see everything anybody does, and you kind of see it on Emma Watson's face that there's this kind of that's a little unnerving, and anyway, and it's basically, the whole film is basically her, if I'm reading it right, and that's kind of the thing, is I'm not sure I am, but I think I'm getting it. The whole movie is basically how a person goes from, in this day and age of faster than light technology and massive innovations being made so quickly, and all of our lives being so dependent on the internet and connectivity and all that, how someone can go from a fairly, let's use the term normal, quote unquote, person, living a normal everyday life, to someone who is broadcasting their life 24/7, has people they've never met commenting on it, and how how easily it is to break down the walls between privacy and people being allowed to live their lives the way they want to and not have to be accountable to anybody. And suddenly now everyone's watching you and everybody's got an opinion, and you don't have, the people who don't want to live this life, don't want to be connected to everything, they're suddenly now the outcasts, and they're the ones, everyone's kind of forcing the technology and the connectivity on them, and how easy it is for someone to kind of become seduced by all that. So I think, again, so interesting ideas, and I think, and again, this is the problem with doing one of these shows right after I see the movie, is I don't really, especially something like this, which is obviously a think piece. I haven't had really time to process it all. It's also really late at night, and I've been up and working all day. But anyway, enough of that. I haven't really had time to run all this through my head and process it. So I'm just kind of spouting off the cuff here. I think the movie is trying to come down on the side of that's a bad thing, that we shouldn't get rid of privacy, that we shouldn't, force people who don't want to be, online, or don't want to be the subject of everyone else's entertainment. We shouldn't force them to do that. That sucks. And again, I think that's what they're saying. But again, the movie leaves the ending very confusing, and not in like a good way, not in like but the way they present it, it's like I don't get what this is going for. Maybe I just don't get it yet. Let's talk about the acting real quick, because that's something I can say without any real question. Is very good throughout the entire movie. It's a very good group of actors playing it very, very subtle and very real and very honest. And it's a great cast all the way down. Emma Watson is really, in my opinion, I know other people who would say different, but in my opinion, Emma Watson is really planting her flag as one of this generation's great actors. I think she's really going to go on and do great things. I believe I said this at the Beauty and the Beast review, but I think Emma Watson is going to be one of those. She's going to be her generation's Helen Mirren, and when she gets older, I'll be long gone by then, but she's going to be that generation's Judi Dench and all that. I think she is really that good, and she's getting better with every movie she's in. She's one of the few Harry Potter actors not to really get swallowed up. I take that back, actually. A lot of the actors from Harry Potter have really done a great job of redefining themselves and not being defined by their characters, and doing different things. So I think that's good. But she, I think, is kind of above the rest of them. The only thing I will say is you can tell, damn, I can't get good lighting in this. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, the only thing I will say is that she's not as strong as some of her predecessors or some of her peers with doing the English or the American accent. She's pretty good, but every now and then there's that little twinge that comes in, and you hear that that she's trying to, enunciate something a little differently or pronounce something a little differently, and she's having trouble, fighting it back. Let's see if this helps. Oh, that's better. Let's do that. No. Sorry, technical difficulties. Anyway, so she's very good, and she's a good grounding, and if I'm reading the film right and what the message is, I think she does a really good job of playing it very subtle and very, you watch the change happen in her, and even when the warning signs present themselves, and she still kind of, goes the wrong way. And I think you can see that it's not it's presented as a this could be you kind of thing. So she's very good. Tom Hanks is frickin' Tom Hanks. I mean, Tom Hanks is just fantastic. And what I like about this film in terms of the casting of him is it takes advantage of what Tom Hanks just is. And Tom Hanks is one of the most likable actors on the planet. The guy is just, he is this generation's Jimmy Stewart. The guy is just so likable. And it kind of casts him as the Steve Jobs kind of guy, always coming out, giving, you can tell by the way he dresses and everything that he's giving all these, big speeches and whatnot. So there's some really good performance on him. But what I like is that, and again, if I'm reading the message of this movie right, I could be completely off base. One of the major themes I got out of it was that the person you need to worry about, taking over and turning the world into a, let's use a tired metaphor, turning the world into Nazi Germany, where everything you say can and will be written down and used against you and all that. The guy you need to worry about is not the nut job screaming and yelling and sending out massive tweets all the time, though you need to keep an eye on him. The guy you need to worry about is the guy who just seems a little too good to be true. He just seems a little bit, the guy who with a smile and just a natural charisma tells you, don't worry about your privacy anymore. Your privacy is outdated. You don't need it. Nobody should have it. And he does it so well, and you can see that they really do present him kind of as a cult leader. And he's the kind of guy that you could see them going for. Some other notable performances. Again, this had a really great cast. Patton Oswalt in this. I really like Patton Oswalt. I like him as TV's Frank's son on the New Mystery Science Theater. And he's really great. Karen Gillan of Doctor Who fame and Guardians of the Galaxy fame is in this. And does a good job, but one of the problems with the film is that it sets up a lot of things, and we're meant to kind of be implied, or told that these people are having all these problems, but we are never really informed as to what those problems or issues are. I think maybe, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, maybe that's because the whole thing is done from Emma Watson's point of view. So the fact that there's something going on with her best friend, that her best friend is being overworked, is steadily getting, sicker and sicker throughout the movie and all that, and apparently has some kind of breakdown or something, or has some kind of drug problem that they mention in passing, and we don't get to see that. I think maybe that was intentional, because, Emma Watson's character isn't aware of it. She's so involved. That's kind of one of those things that you have all this connectivity, but still the important things slip past you. Because people are always putting on, it's kind of like that Twilight Zone episode with the kid who could read people's mind. People are always so busy, when they know the camera's on them, they're always so busy putting on their happiest face that you don't notice the real problems going on underneath. So now I'm talking myself into not so much liking this movie, but understanding this movie better as I go on. Like, half this stuff didn't make sense until I came out here and started yammering about it. So this is the first time where this is less of a review and more of a kind of a listening to me kind of deconstruct the film as I go. I got to send this shout out too, in a very, very small but important role, the late Bill Paxton, as he's Emma Watson's father, and it's one of those. There's nothing really to say about his performance. It was good. He wasn't in it very much, so there's not really something you can hang a hat on, really. But he plays her dad who has MS, and he plays it very subtly. I keep using that word again. I need to buy a thesaurus. Nothing really to go into detail about his performance, just that, you know, it's always a little sobering when you kind of see an actor who recently passed away, and there he is, and this could be his last film, and I think if it is, you know, he gave a great performance going out. So, I mean, much love to you, Billy, and, you know, thanks for everything. There's one last thing I want to talk about, and it's kind of weird as I kind of round the clubhouse turn heading home. So there was one issue with this film, and it's such a dumb issue. It's one that I noticed mainly because it fits my personality or my upbringing or whatever. And I don't know if anyone else picked up on it, but there's something kind of off about the presentation and about the overall concept. Again, Emma Watson's character is this character who slowly begins to believe that privacy, you know, everybody should see what she does every day, and everybody should, you know, do this and do that, and then by the end goes, yay, privacy, screw it. But here's the thing. Emma Watson's character in the film is an only child. Or at least they never mention any brothers and sisters. And I have a very hard time. Now, they do a good job, and again, talking myself into some of the points of this movie, when she first starts kind of what they call going transparent, she's wearing a camera on herself all the time, and she's always connected. I can see an only child doing that for the simple fact that some only children do things because they like the idea that someone's listening. They spend a lot of time alone, so there's always this thing of you've got all these ideas, you've got all these things you want to say, and not a lot of people to say them to. You know, so I'm living proof right here. You know, I started doing these videos because I had a lot of things to say about movies and no one really to say them to, so I figured this is a good way to do it. So I get that. So they do a good job, and that part makes sense with her being an only child. But the part that doesn't is I have a hard time believing, just from myself and the other only children I know, I have a hard time seeing an only child, one, going transparent 24/7, and two, I have a hard time seeing any only child taking the stance of privacy and private moments should be done away with. Because, say what you will about only children, and I've heard all the slams against us. We're spoiled, we're not socially adept, you know, we're awkward, and this, and yeah. I've heard all the slams against us. But one thing you can say about us is we understand the value of privacy. We understand because that is what our world is. We have a lot of moments that since we do so much alone, and we were raised that way, we understand that there are things that we keep to ourselves. And sometimes that's hard for other people to understand, especially people from bigger families. I have a couple of friends who are always on me about why don't I do this or why don't I do that? You know, why do I keep things to myself? I'm not trying to be cold and I'm not trying to be distant. It's just that's the way I am, and I like keeping certain things and activities and situations to myself. It's just who I am. And I know a lot of fellow only children who are kind of like that. And I certainly, the idea of something like this, like what I'm doing now, where I'm connected to people, even if it's just a small group of people, yeah, that's appealing. But I would not let you all, and you would not want to watch me and be connected to me 24 hours a day. And I can't think of an only child who would willingly give into that. I don't care how seductive the whole thing seems. You know? So that was a thing that nagged at me until I kind of noticed in the film. I was like, she's an only child. She wouldn't go for this. You know? The last thing I want to say, just kind of knock against this film a little bit, is again, we're not privy to all the details because we're seeing it through Emma Watson's point of view. But there are certain details that we should be, you know, spoiler alert here. At the end, she finds some kind of something about Tom Hanks and Patton Oswalt, something about them, and posts it all online, and it gets them in some kind of trouble. but they never say what it is she found. Never said what exactly they did that was evil or bad. Was it just, cheating on their wives or something like that? I don't know. And you're like, that's something you feel like we should be made, everyone else in the movie gets to know what's going on. How come the audience doesn't? So I'm left in a quandary on this one as I pull into the apartment complex. Because on the one hand, and maybe this is a good thing, maybe this is a recommendation for this film. Just driving the 20 minutes from the movie theater to the house and kind of having this one-sided discussion about some of the ideas and the way they're presented in the film has been very interesting, and I've enjoyed it, and I find that I like elements of this film more after thinking about it and talking about it than I did when I was watching the film, and that's not something that happens a lot. We're so used to kind of immediate, again, kind of ironic. We're so used to immediate feedback that when something says, no, wait, you got to go and think about this, we're not entirely sure how to handle it. At least not anymore. So I think there are some good ideas and some clever metaphor and all that went into this film. Do I recommend it? I really don't know. I don't. Let's say this. Here's a good way to put it. Let's think of it this way. Instead of me giving you a, go see it or skip it thing, let's put it this way. If you've listened to me this whole time and you find some of the ideas that I've discussed, or some of the things that, the themes that I got from the movie, if you find those interesting and you say, I kind of, those sound like something you might want to explore, then go see this movie. If those ideas are not something you really want to explore, even though we probably all should, then skip it. That's really the best I can do at this point. I think it's a good-ish movie. I just don't know if I like it. But I think the ideas and the way they're presented are fairly well crafted. That's what I got. That's the best I can do. So thank you all for joining me. It's late. This video is running long. So until next time, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.